I started the job on a Thursday. It wasn't my plan. I had only been in Recife for 3 weeks, staying in a friend's apartment while figuring things out. But when a temp agency offered me a night shift as portero, I accepted without asking too many questions. The pay was low, the neighborhood unfamiliar, but the buildings seemed quiet. Just another concrete complex tucked into the edge of Zona Oeste. It began to rain around 8:30. Not heavy, just that thin, steady drizzle that turns everything into reflections. I liked the sound of it against the glass of the small booth. The guardhouse was barely large enough for the chair, a desk, and the monitor that showed 4 black and white feeds from the perimeter. The walls were damp. One of the corners smelled like mildew, but I tried not to notice. There was a logbook on the desk. It was old, the pages warped by moisture. The pen didn't work at first. I scribbled a few lines to get the ink going, then wrote my name, the date, and the time. Nobody came in or out for nearly an hour. At 9:42, the buzzer rang. I looked up, but no one was visible through the rain. I stood, leaned forward. Someone was at the gate. A woman in a dark coat, no umbrella. Her hair was soaked, stuck to the sides of her face. She didn't press the button again. She didn't wave. She just stared into the booth. I picked up the intercom. "Boa noite," I said, unsure of my accent. No response. I glanced at the monitor. Camera 1 front gate was empty. It just rained. I watched the monitor for a long time after that. Camera 1 showed nothing but rain. No figure, no motion. I pressed the button to cycle between angles, hoping to catch a different view. Nothing. Just puddles reflecting light and wind brushing across the sidewalk. When I looked up from the screen, the woman was gone. I stepped outside, keeping the door of the booth open behind me. The gate stood closed, locked with the chain as always. The street beyond was empty. No footsteps, no splash of someone walking away, just the quiet, wet hiss of rain on asphalt. I went back inside. Told myself it was a resident, maybe a neighbor, maybe someone looking for the wrong address. But even as I tried to make sense of it, I couldn't shake the way she stood. Still. Intent. Not confused or lost. Just At 11:12, the buzzer rang again. Same chime, one single tone. I looked up, she was back. Same coat, same soaked hair, same silence. I reached for the intercom again. "Sephora?" Still no response. But this time, when I glanced at the monitor, there she was. Camera 1, standing directly in front of the gate. I watched both versions of her at once. The real and the recorded, they were identical, except in the feed she wasn't facing me. She was turned sideways, head tilted slightly toward the far wall, as if listening. I looked up again. The real woman was gone. The feed still played, still rained, still flickered slightly, but the image didn't change. She stayed there, still, frozen, and the timestamp had stopped. I tried resetting the monitor. There was a switch beneath the desk. I toggled it off, waited, then turned it back on. The cameras flickered to black and returned. The woman was gone, the image refreshed, the timestamp resumed. But I didn't feel relief. It was like restarting a clock in a room with no windows. The passage of time meant nothing if the space itself wasn't real. I sat back in the chair and tried not to look at the screen. I listened to the rain instead, soft and steady against the roof. For nearly an hour, nothing happened. No cars entered, no intercom calls, no movement on any camera feed. At 12:04, the monitor glitched. Just a flicker, a line of static across the middle of the screen. I leaned forward. The camera view held steady, but something was wrong with the gate. I rewound the feed. just a few seconds, and played it back slowly. Near single frame, the woman standing just outside the gate, not facing it, not moving, just appearing for one split second before vanishing again. I froze the image, zoomed slightly. Her head was tilted again, not toward the wall this time, toward the booth. My booth. I checked the front window. Nothing. I stepped outside with the flashlight, sweeping the beam along the sidewalk. No one. The rain had lightened, but the air felt colder. When I came back in, the monitor had changed again. Camera 1, still image, no rain, no timestamp. And now the woman was sitting inside the booth, in my chair, looking at the screen. I couldn't look away from the screen. The woman sat in my chair, her back straight, hands folded in her lap. The image didn't move. It wasn't live. It wasn't playback either. It felt staged, like a photograph taken of a moment that hadn't happened yet. I pressed every button I could find, switched cameras, restarted the system, pulled the plug for 3 full minutes before plugging it back in. When the monitor rebooted, she was gone. The screen returned to normal. Camera 1 showed the gate again, empty. Rain still falling, timestamp ticking forward. I opened the logbook looking for anything to anchor myself. The page had curled slightly from the humidity, but my handwriting was still there. Date, time, my name. Underneath, something new. Another entry, same date, later time, same name. I blinked, checked again. It was my name, but I hadn't written it. The pen I used was still on the desk, capped. The new entry was smoother, more fluid, like someone had signed it for me. It read, 04970, Otrala Autorizada. My name. I hadn't left the booth. I hadn't authorized anything. And no one else was working. I stepped outside to breathe. The rain hit cold against my face. I walked to the edge of the gate, checked the street. Still empty. I turned back toward the building, toward the booth. The light was on inside, and for just a second I saw someone sitting, not on the screen, not in memory, inside the actual booth, right where I had been. But when I opened the door, it was empty again, except the monitor was off, and the logbook was open to a blank page. I didn't touch the logbook again. It stayed open on the desk, the damp pages slowly curling inward. Every time I glanced at it, the line with my name seemed darker, bolder, as if the ink was still fresh. I thought about tearing the page out, but something in me resisted, like it wasn't mine to remove. The monitor remained off. I tried the buttons, the cables, nothing. The screen was blank, and the booth felt smaller now. The rain had eased into mist, but the air inside stayed humid and cold, like the room had been sealed from the world outside. I stood for a long time, watching the front gate, listening, breathing. Then I heard it. The soft buzz of the intercom. A single tone, sharp, brief. I didn't move. I didn't answer. I just waited. After a few minutes, I stepped outside. The sidewalk was empty. The street was still. But the gate was open. Not wide. Just enough, as if someone had been let in. I walked back into the booth, slower this time. The light above flickered once. The chair felt damp, warmer than it should have been. I sat anyway. When I looked down, the logbook was on a new page. One life, written in the same hand as before. An 03, Saida Autorizada. I don't remember leaving, but the gate is closed again. And I've been sitting here ever since. I told myself it would be the last one. It was already after midnight and the rain hadn't let up since the afternoon. I had stopped twice to dry off under gas station awnings, once to eat something cheap and hot. The orders were slowing, the streets were clearing, and I was 2 reais away from the daily bonus. Just one more. The app pinged at 12:11 IE a medium-distance delivery near Muca, Rua das Palmas. No building number, no apartment, just a pin dropped in the middle of a block. The name on the order was Anna. I confirmed the ride and zipped my jacket higher, helmet fogged from the inside. The city looked drowned. Every intersection glowed under a thin layer of water, headlights bending and breaking across the asphalt. Trash floated slowly by the curbs. Storefronts shuttered. No pedestrians. The closer I got to the pin, the darker everything became. First, the streetlights started to blink. Then they stopped altogether. I slowed as I entered the block. My headlight barely caught the outlines of buildings. Low, old constructions with barred windows. The sidewalk had puddles so wide I couldn't tell where the street began. The app said I had arrived, but there was no one outside. No address plate, no open gate. Just the sound of rain hitting metal. I turned the engine off and waited. 1 minute, 2. I messaged the client, no response. I called straight to voicemail. That's when I noticed something across the street. Another delivery bag. Same bottle, same color. Resting under a closed awning, dripping wet. But no one nearby. I crossed the street on foot, helmet still on, rain dripping down my visor. The bag was just sitting there under the awning, leaning against a metal gate. Same brand, same scuffed zipper, same delivery app sticker peeling off at the edge. It looked exactly like mine, down to the loose thread on the side. I reached out to touch it. Empty. Damp inside. No receipt. No address. I looked around again. Nothing moved. No windows lit. No voices. Just the rain and the soft hum of my bike's engine still idling across the street. I backed away slowly, eyes on the bag, until I was back on my side of the block. The app still showed arrived. I canceled the call and refreshed the G. The pin did. It still hovered over the exact spot where I stood. I checked the block number. Rua das Palmas, 1037 to 1053. I circled it on the bike, turned the corner, came back in from the opposite direction. Same buildings. Same bag under the awning. But this time there were 2 bags. Side by side. Both soaked. Both empty. I circled the block again, slower now. Watching for signs, graffiti, broken tiles, anything to anchor myself. The route looked identical every time. The same puddle near the drain. The same flickering bulb above the closed pet shop. The same dark apartment with curtains drawn. After the 4th loop, I stopped. My delivery bag was still with me. But now the app said, Pero entrego com seco. I hadn't seen anyone. I hadn't handed anything over. And yet, it was marked green, completed. Below that, a new prompt, Avali su experience. I stayed still for a long time. The engine off, the rain softening around me. I stared at the 2 bags across the street, unsure which one had been there first. Maybe both were. Maybe neither. The water pooled around them like they had been sitting there all night. I reopened the app. My last delivery. Ana, Rua das Palmas was marked green, complete. But the address details had vanished. No timestamp, no route history. The map only showed a blue dot, my current location, and a message below. Return to starting point. I zoomed out. The map was empty. No street names, no traffic markers, just gray shapes and a blinking blue circle in the middle. I started the engine again, drove forward 1 block, then turned left, right, left again, tried to reach a main avenue. After 7 minutes, I stopped. The pet shop was in front of me. Same sign, same light flickering in the window. I had gone in a full circle. I turned around, retraced my path, took different streets, rode fast, checking every intersection, but no matter what route I chose, I always ended up on Rua das Palmas. At some point, I passed a mirror on a lamppost, one of those convex ones for blind corners. I caught my reflection in it. Helmet on, bag strapped, just like always. But behind me, in the mirror, there was a second bike. Same model, station box. No rider. I turned fast. Nothing. Just my own wet tire tracks curving back into the dark. I pulled over again, heart racing, breath fogging up the helmet. I kept glancing at the corner where the mirror had been, but there was nothing now, not even the pole, just the sidewalk, wet and cracked, and a flickering bulb overhead. I unlocked my phone to take a screenshot of the route. The app had closed itself. When I reopened it, it didn't ask for a password. There was no dashboard, no earnings, no queue. Just a single screen. Entrega en andamento. Below that, the name, Anna. No surname, no details. The address, Rua das Palmas, SM Número. I tapped for directions. The map zoomed in on a single street, identical to the one I was on, but the buildings were drawn slightly differently. No pet shop, no corner mirror. The pin pulsed over a blank gray square. I looked up. That square wasn't blank. It was the building directly across from me. A 3-story residential structure with closed shutters, no lights, and a rusted gate. I crossed the street, still holding the phone. As I approached, the screen brightness dimmed on its own. Then the vibration motor buzzed. Once. A new message popped up. Entregador fora de rota? I stepped back. The phone buzzed again. Recalibrando. The pen moved. Only a few meters. Directly onto the spot where I stood. I looked around and suddenly nothing matched. As the buildings were all unmarked, the signs blank, the streets silent, even the rain sounded different. Softer, as if coming from speakers. I turned. The gate behind me was now open. I didn't remember walking through the gate. I just remember standing in the hallway. Small, tiled, narrow, the kind of corridor you pass through on your way to somewhere else. The walls were damp. The light overhead buzzed softly like an old fridge running in another room. There were no numbers on the doors. No doormat, no elevator, just a staircase curving upward into shadow. My phone buzzed again. Voce. I looked at the screen. The map was gone. All that remained was a single button. From far en terre. I didn't press it. I locked the phone and slipped it into my pocket. Then I turned around and left the building. Or tried to. The street outside was the same, Rua das Palmas, but mirrored. The sidewalk sloped the wrong way, the air smelled different, the rain had stopped. I checked my surroundings, but nothing looked right. Then I saw it. Across the street, under a red awning. Same jacket, same bag, same helmet. Standing still, facing the building I had just exited. I reached for my phone again. It was already open. The screen showed a photo, blurry, dimly lit. I was standing in front of a building, holding a bag, looking up. Below the image, a confirmation icon. Ik bel com sits. And beneath that, Entregador, local, residencia. I checked the reflection in the screen. There was no one behind me, but in the photo, the version of me was smiling. Moved into the house on a Monday afternoon. It was a small place, one bedroom, a kitchenette, a living room with uneven tiles. The landlord handed me the keys through the car window and didn't get out, just said, "Sechoa moi todo vaza." It didn't seem like a joke. That night it started raining. Not a drizzle, the kind of northeastern storm that sounds like gravel hitting the roof. I lay in bed listening to it beat against the windows, thick curtains, breathing in and out with the wind. The room smelled like damp cloth and old paint. The house had no second floor. That was one of the reasons I took it. After a year of shared walls and upstairs neighbors, I wanted silence, solitude, a place where I could sleep without hearing footsteps above me. At 2:17 a.m., I heard footsteps, slow, uneven, right above my head. I sat up, pulse climbing. Maybe I misheard. Maybe it was outside. I waited. Another step, then two in a row, creaking softly across the ceiling. I walked to the living room and looked up. The roof was wooden, exposed beams painted white. No access hatch, no attic, just empty space between the ceiling and the tiles. I stepped outside to check. The rain was heavy, the kind that bounces off the ground. The roof was clean, no balcony, no overhang, no one up there. I went back inside, dripping wet. The steps had stopped, but now a single drop fell from the ceiling. Then another, then a steady trickle in the corner of the room. No cracks, no leaks, just water, falling straight through solid wood. The next morning the ceiling was dry. I checked the living room first. No water on the floor, no stains. The wood looked solid, untouched. The only proof of the night before was a towel I had laid out in the corner, soaked through, heavy with cold water. Held the neighbor across the alley? She was older, polite, curious. I asked if the house had an upstairs unit, or an attic maybe. She shook her head. "Aquí é tudo terreno." Huh? "Ha foi sobrado antigamente, mas tiraram o piso de cima faz tempo." I thanked her and went back inside. That afternoon, the rain returned, softer, steadier. I stayed in the living room, reading with the lights off, listening to the rhythm of water on the roof. Around 10, I started to feel it again, that pressure, that awareness. At 10:42, I heard the first step, then a pause, then another, faint but clear. Same slow rhythm, same path, as if someone was pacing directly above me, barefoot, on a wooden floor that no longer existed. I stood under the spot. The ceiling didn't move, but one of the light fixtures began to tick. A small sound, rhythmic, like expanding metal. Then came the dripping again, from a different place this time. Not the corner, the center of the room, directly above where I stood. I placed a bowl beneath it. 20 minutes later, it was half full. I touched the water. It wasn't cold like rain. It was warm, almost body temperature. And in the middle of the bowl, floating gently in the water, was a thin, curled strand of black hair. I didn't sleep that night. I left the lights on, moved the mattress to the far end of the room, and sat in the chair by the wall with the ceiling fan above me. The rain continued, steady and deliberate. The bowl with the hair sat beside me, untouched. By 2:00 a.m., the dripping started again. This time in the kitchen, in the bedroom, then back in the living room. 3 separate places, one after another, like someone moving through the ceiling and stopping just long enough for water to fall. Feeling invigorated, I moved with it. Room to room. I never saw anything, just felt it. A tension, like static in the air. The house didn't creak, the floor didn't vibrate, but the water always started falling where I stood next. At 3:12, I placed 3 bowls in different rooms and waited. In the silence, I could hear it clearly. Drip, boca, drip. Not all at once, one at a time, in sequence, as if something walked overhead, left to right, room to room. I sat back in the chair. Looked up, the ceiling fan above me began to spin, slow, without power. I hadn't turned it on, the switch was down. And then, from somewhere behind the wood, a single knock. Not loud, not urgent, just one, like someone testing the thickness of the ceiling between us. When I looked down, there was a fourth bowl at my feet. I hadn't placed it there, but it was already filling with water, and the water was already dark. The next morning, I searched online. I found an old listing for the house from years ago. Same street, same front gate. The photos were different though. The ceilings were higher. The living room had a staircase I didn't have. The listing described it as a 2-story rental, last renovated in 2011. The second floor had been removed, but I could still hear it. That night, the rain returned. Around 1:00 a.m., I turned off every light, sat in the living room again. 4 bowls this time, placed in a square. The ceiling above looked solid. I ran my hand across it, dry, unmarked. Then came the first drop. Not on my balls, on my shoulder. I looked up. The leak had shifted again, as if avoiding the containers. I moved one beneath it. The drip stopped. Another started in the bedroom. I didn't follow it. I waited. A few minutes later, I heard something fall, soft like fabric, above the ceiling fan. I stood, slowly. The fan wasn't spinning, but it tilted slightly to the side now, like something had pulled on it. I climbed onto the chair, leaned closer, and that's when I saw it. Carved into one of the wooden beams, a number, faint, scratched, by hand, 201. It made no sense. My address was 45A. There was no apartment 201. Not in a single-story house. Not here. But the number was fresh. I ran my finger across it. The wood was still damp, not with rain, but with something warmer, something that seeped through from the space above. The space that no longer existed. I didn't tell anyone. Not the landlord, not the neighbors. What would I say? That the upstairs was still living even though it didn't exist? That the rain only dripped in patterns? That something was leaving behind pieces of itself? That morning, I taped plastic over the living room ceiling, covered the beams, sealed the corners, told myself it was just to stop the water. It rained again that night. I stayed in the bedroom, lights off, fan unplugged. No bowls, no chair, no flashlight, just silence and fabric, waiting for it all to pass. At 3:03 a.m., I heard a drawer slide open, then soft steps, measured, slow, bavut. This time, I didn't move. I lay flat and listened. The footsteps passed overhead, crossed to the far end of the house, then stopped. I waited for them to return. They didn't. Instead, I heard the front door creak open. I got up. The door was closed, locked, chain still in place. But now, taped to the inside of it, was a slip of paper, soaked, curled at the edges. This healed it off. On the back, in black marker, occupied. I looked around the room. Everything was as I left it, except for one detail. The towel I had used to dry the floor on the first night, the one I threw away days ago, was folded neatly on the back of my chair, still damp and still warm.